Hello. As you can probably already kinda deduce, I'm doing a style study. Angry skeleton noises. So basically, style study is just, in general, a celebration as well as a look through of different art styles and stuff like that. And of course that includes pen and ink stuff, painting, film, video games, because every artist kind of has their own things and touches and stuff like that they put into their work. We are going to go over a artist that I think 5% of the population knows. Hajime Isayama. Isayama? I am absolutely butchering this. I apologize. But we power on. We are going to kind of go over some different stuff as far as Titan of Attack, and I got, my little tabs, my terribly made poster note tabs that, a professional does not make, I've nicknamed, tips of mine the unpro tips, because, we ain't a comic book man here. I'm not a manga maker, dude. I'm an unprofessional art skeleton man on boy thingy on the internet. So we don't do things that, are by the book necessarily. We do things from a book. And that is what we're doing here today. I'm not as familiar with Hajime's work and all that. At least not in the same way that I feel like I'm with Fujimoto's stuff, where I've bought just about every single thing that man, master of aviation, has made. But with Attack on Titan, I own quite a few books of that, and I'm still kind of collecting everything, which it's a longer series, so it takes a little bit of time, but that's kind of the one I'm the most familiar with. Of course, I got my coloring book there because, I'm a grown adult. I like coloring books. We're gonna go through different panels, look at different pages, and just kind of get an idea of the little nuances, and just kind of go through and just kind of see what he does at different points. So, outlines. 2-to-1 page spreads. Nothing says professional like looking like I write like a 5th grader on meth. I can write backwards. We can write forwards and backwards and make it not look like, I have a brain aneurysm going on. So we have motion, 2-to-1 page spreads, outlines, faces, body shapes. So yeah, we have our lesson planned for today, boys and gals. Absolutely didn't, just, put a bunch of random shiz into my books, 5 minutes before stream, because we do things professionally here.
Oh, brother!
Faces is probably
This guy stinks!
With this, because honestly, that's literally one of the main things that most people kind of notice whenever, or try to draw a lot of times whenever they're doing their own artwork and stuff like that, is faces. Everyone's got a style for how they draw their characters and everything like that. And of course, Mr. Hajime is not any different. So basically, what's kind of neat about Hajime's overall style when it comes to faces is that he has variation in how he draws the faces and stuff like that. And I think it's one of those things when it comes to anything anime and manga related that some people can have a little bit of like a same face syndrome, as they call it. I'm not exactly a stranger to that. I think I've gotten a little bit better as far as drawing faces and stuff like that, but it takes some time to kind of get to that point. But I feel like that's part of the journey in a lot of ways. So basically, one of the things that And this is where, when it comes to Hajime's designs and stuff like that, is that he is definitely someone that has gotten down face structure. So you can see that of course we have old Armin here. And you can see with Armin's face, he's got a very apparent chin going on here. Like, one of the things that I've picked up myself as far as when it's come to drawing faces, you want to have a clear, defined facial structure for females and males. And I think a good way to differentiate males and females in a lot of ways when it comes to faces, and Hajime does that here, is with Armin, you can see he has a very defined collarbone that kind of goes across there and then has a sharp turn upwards. Whereas with Mikasa over here, you can tell that there's a lot more curvature and less angles and stuff like that in the faces here. But then, it's going back to that panel here, you've got different things that kind of differentiate. And there's different variations on the male face too. As you can see, curve, sharp angle up. Now, of course, it's not that females don't have a sharper line up here. Like Annie here has a more defined jawline in her, but it's not quite as sharp. There's that curve and a slightly sharp angle with her, having more defined jaw features on a woman and still kind of keep it within that same bone structure and everything like that. And I feel like that's something that Hajime has down here too. So it's like you have things like Annie having a more defined jaw, but it's still being somewhat rounded like Mikasa. But then you have some of the other characters that kind of have Armin's same facial structure, but then you also have ones that, like, the jaw is a little more rounded, but it still has that sharp angle there. His to his to his to his, like each character's face has a different structure that allows you to be able to tell them apart in a lot of ways. We have ones that go like the more defined jaw, more angular, like that jaw. But then you also have, you know, angle with a little bit more of a pointed chin in here, rather than a more squared chin. I'll kind of draw it a little bit too here, because I feel like when it comes to these style studies, it's good to actually draw it yourself in a lot of ways. Me. But yeah, we're gonna draw all that face. So basically, we're starting with kind of a base face there. And of course, he's got his ear right up here, angled. And even he has a little bit of a curved angle to that. It's like it's a sharp angle, but it's not like there's more definiteness and curvature, as well as, you know, the little tiny little anime chin there. So another thing that's kind of interesting about his faces and stuff like that are noses. This might just be an anime thing and manga thing too, but depending on the angle that you get a character at, you might get either a full nose drawing, like up here. You can, like, when the world needed this panel nose. There we go. Oh, we got a good example. It's a different example. So basically, like, from this angle, and the shadows are determining this too. You can see from sides, or areas where the shadows are a lot heavier, you'll see a full nose and everything like that. You know, you can basically see that he's got a nose, but there's space there. You don't see the full nose, and that could be a thing of, like, if it were a movie, this would be like spotlight against a black background or something like that. So there's probably gonna be, the lighting itself is not always gonna be showing you every single detail. Actually, I might need to move that over just a teensy bit. That nose needs to be all the way over here. What are you doing over there, nose? And one thing that's kind of interesting, and this is something I noticed about Fujimoto's artwork too, but you can basically tell when it comes to eyes, it can be a little bit of a toss-up sometimes, whether you have an eye that's just like a tiny little pupil with the iris around it, or you have an eye that maybe has just a shade in it and all that stuff. It could be a toss-up, I guess, depending on like the lighting of the scene and everything like that, or maybe there's an effect with the eyes that Hajime wants to show. But there's a clear distinction between Armin's eyes and Mikasa's eyes. Armin has more of those eyes that are like this, where you actually see the pupil, where Mikasa's eye in certain places just looks like they're not a lot. It's just shading and stuff like that. I feel like the reason for doing that is that you can maybe see more of Armin through his eyes. That's just one aspect, though, of this kind of thing. Alright, so body shapes. This is something that there's actually a couple of different panels for this. He kind of goes along with a similar style of anime and manga drawing where the characters are a lot more lanky. Like, you can definitely tell that they're a little bit thinner, they're a little bit taller. Like, you got a little bit more gangly-dangly arms and legs, and even in this panel here, you can kind of see that even more so too. And it may even be the perspective too that might give this impression. But like, his arms are really thin. You can definitely tell that his legs are like really kind of, the way that they go down, it's like it feels like it gets smaller as you go down the foot. Like here we got another one on another character. Long legs, maybe thinner arms, shorter, and this might also be a little harder to see with him having a jacket on. It's like you have a body structure that looks a little more like this, wiggy little arms and everything like that, with necks that are a little bit long. Girth man, neck, beard, neck man. You can tell that there's a little bit more of an exaggeratedness, but basically characters, they're lanky or thinner, which that leads me to good springing off point here, because this is also a really good two-page spread, because you get all of your characters. This is the point at which we see every single one of our characters taking the salute and everything, and basically you get a full spread of pretty much everyone. There may be a few characters missing, but these are like our main cast and everything, and that's basically, and you get it in a nice big old spread. I mean, and usually a lot of times when you have a big two-page spread, you're going to usually have a big moment in that, or maybe you're trying to show a sense of scale and everything with that. So like for here, this is one of those things where it's a big spread for a big character moment. Like, this is a moment that the author wants you to be paying attention to and wants you to be looking at, where you have, let's say we have one for a sense of scale. Ooh. Yeah, just kidding. There's none to show. But yeah, but basically, this is a good example of a two-page spread here. And basically, this is to show a sense of scale. It's like, now, and what's kind of interesting about this one is that it is a two-page spread, but it could just as easily work as a one-page spread and gives you every bit of information that you need in the panel and everything like that. So basically, you have, let's say, let's cover that up. You have your character running away, the fear in his eyes. There's a sense of tension. You're seeing all of that in one big page, and you're meant to focus in on the emotions of this moment. But then you have the other side too, which is you're basically seeing, now camera's flipped, so you would be reading from this page to this page if you were just doing it normally. But basically in this page, you have, covering that, you have a sense of scale as far as how big the Titans are in this universe. You have the house, you have the Titan, but then you have a horse in the distance. This is showing the scale of the characters versus the Titan. You're getting every bit of information as far as what's going on in the scene. Titan's running, they're moving this way, and they're moving into this next panel. He's seeing what's going on in the back and reacting to that. And so you're getting two big one-page panels here in one big open spread, like this next one. This one is a good example of just another scale thing. So it's like you have a forest here, a nice giant forest. The trees are massive. They're thick. You got your character walking across a plain of grass, bottom looking up and everything, and as you go up further in the tree, it gets thinner and thinner. You're showing how big this forest is in comparison to our characters, and kind of the playing field in which the characters can fight in. And that's how Hajime is showing a sense of scale through the panels and stuff like that. This is more comic structure and storytelling. It's a good example of visual storytelling being shown to us through the medium of a comic or a manga. And this is showing almost three things, actually. We have scale being shown, our characters are small, Titan is big, and of course, the third thing, I said there was three, is motion, action, effects. We're having these things being shown in this page too. It's using three different things to portray this moment and make it feel so much bigger than if it was just, you know, your standard comic page split into like 3 or 4 different panels and all that. You're getting this action in multiple shots, while with the one here, you're getting all of that in one giant picture. All of this is working in tandem with one another to give you this just big bombastic scene. There is something different about you know, having the scene go on and then you flip the page and then bam, it just opens up. The composition of characters, there's so much going on, it's all happening all at once, and you're seeing it in this just big, monumentous shot. Effects. In the unique way that Hajime draws this. So we have stuff on fire. The way that he draws flames and fire and effects and things like this is that the fire itself is not just, you know, and this is more something I do when I'm drawing fire, is it's just, you know, your typical, you know, just a flame. But the way that Hajime does this is that I think is so fascinating as well, is that it's not just, you know, line. Like, it's not just a drawn flame. These flames are like hatching lines, and not all of them are even connected. It's like you just have these really just rough hatching lines. Like there's certain spots in there giving almost like shadows to the flame in a lot of ways, showing a sense of depth to the flame itself. And you can see that depth in how dark and even scratchier and hatchier that he can get. And you can see that when you're looking at the flames. It's like you can tell that there's spots there that to give it a sense of volume and shape. It's like he draws things darker and gives more hatching lines and everything in there to give the fire not just a flat look. It actually has shape through the hatching lines and everything like that. It's like everything inside the fire is hatch lines and stuff like that. Just do these little hatching lines. things like this. They're not as defined because realistically you're not gonna be able to see that in the fire. You're not gonna see the logs in the fire perfectly. But you are gonna still see the general shape, and he uses the hatching lines like that to give even shape to things inside the fire, or it's like you could tell it's on fire, but you could still see what's in the fire, and you can see its shape and everything. Another effect that I think is really interesting is motion. Absolute favorite thing about how Hajime draws. Same thing I love about Fujimoto or Kotaro Miura is how they use to give you a sense of motion. It's not just, you know, you could have someone doing a kick. So like, let's say you could do just a normal kick. Normal kick. You get a little bit of that motion. But whenever you're looking at a kick in something like this is a really good example. It's just the general shape made up of scraggly lines and everything, and you're seeing right here, it's like you're not seeing just shadows and everything like that. Even the shadows here, they're scraggly. That's like you're getting that sense of Eren getting kicked and his body moving and contorting in a certain way. You're getting that motion in a way that's way more dynamic. Like that's just kind of But then you're getting the general outline. Right. You'll probably get more of that outline on the top there. But then you're getting more scraggle. You're getting more, and even the image is being shaded with lines. So darker up top, or in places where you're using blacks to show, of course, the curvature of the foot. It like think of it like watching slowed down footage. There's blur. You're seeing that one motion in less frames versus if you were doing it slower, where it would take more frames. That's less information on screen, and there's less stuff visible. And then when you slow down, you're gonna see blurring. You're gonna see less detail happening because your camera's not picking up that data. It's the same with drawing. It's like you're seeing less defined things. And of course that brings it on to the author to find ways to give dimension and give a sense of volume and shading and space and everything, while also having to capture that motion, and there's less details. So it's like, how do you get over that dilemma? Hatching lines like this. Like this is a really good example of a punch. You can see that the lines themselves, they're thick, rough, and just janky. But it's that way because it's in motion. Less defined, but it looks like if I was doing like this. You still see the general shape and an outline of my hand, but you're seeing less details going on. Some general, like the shadows are almost dragging along a little bit. And you kind of see that there too. There's an intense usage of shadow in these panels that I noticed that Hajime uses a lot. He uses a similar sense of motion and line work that someone like Fujimoto uses. Granted, it's definitely, you can tell in the way that faces are done. It's definitely more neat. Now granted, if you look up close to like there's a piece right here on the lip, that might be a little hard to see. Basically, he's got his chin, and these are the lips, and there's a line right here that kind of just barely goes off. And there's even some lines where it's like where when you look up close on it, it's 2 lines instead of 1. Or there's a little bit of a gap and an opening there before you get to his nose and all of that. Hajime still has a roughness to his sketch and art, and even like his mouth here. It's gonna look a little rougher on my end, but you can tell that Hajime has that same roughness that a Fujimoto might have. Granted, Fujimoto is a lot more rough, I feel like, which that's why I like his artwork. But Hajime kind of has that too, and it kind of stands out against other mangas that might have a bit of a cleaner line work and all that stuff. I feel like Hajime very likely uses a brush, like either just a straight paint brush, or maybe even a brush pen, something like this, where the lines are going to be a little more thicker on one side, but then thinner on the other. But it's something that you could tell the tool in which he's using here is a physical pen, ink, potentially even an inkwell to be able to get those kinds of lines. Even during a scene that's really, it's still intense, but it's not as, like, you can definitely tell that there's thicker outlines and things, more black used in spots here. And even far away panels still look like they're still on the thick side as far as the actual pen being used. And now the other thing that Hajime has, and this is, I mean, he's probably used this sort of technique in other manga. I'd have to see what other stuff that he's specifically done. But the uncanny is used pretty frequently, at least in Attack on Titan. There's a sense of the scary and uncanny in these designs, and this is where you see the more shadowed, darkened, hatchier lines being used in there to give the Titans this sort of distant but familiar quality to them. So this is a little bit of an add-in section, but I thought it was really important for Hajime's style. But there is a whole ton of just background. There's everything from gear descriptions to things about the wall to the movement system that they use. It's just all stuff that really, really fleshes out things in the world, and I feel like he does it in a way that fully encompasses the world of Attack on Titan and really gives you a good idea of the things and even just the small details about the world that you would need to know to fully understand the story and enjoy it. Hey y'all. The rest of the live stream gets really rambly, so I figured I'd break the fourth wall and wrap things up here with a statement. When going through Hajime's work, while I enjoyed it all the way as far back as high school, Attack on Titan is such a huge piece of art. Loved the anime, loved the manga too, but it didn't come fully apparent to me how much skill this man was showing on display, and it just ran right under my nose and I just didn't realize it at the time. But that's why I feel it's great to do videos like this. Study someone's style, draw it yourself, and find new and old things to appreciate over the art, and just let the appreciation just sink in and grow from there. And this video was a bit of a while coming, so if you, like I had, thought an art style was similar, or just looked like every other anime and manga and comic out there, I challenge you to study it, because I guarantee you'll find that there's so much more there to appreciate and love. To quote one of my favorite shows growing up, there's always more to things than meets the eye. Play me out, Linkin Park. Oh. We don't have the budget for that? Awkward. So I guess it's cut to black. Alright guys, that's it for me. Subscribe if you want to stay tuned for what I got in the pipeline. I don't know when I'm going to post next, but if you like these sorts of videos, stick around. The door is always open at the Doom Room Bebop. Take care guys.